This is a
Squad.
What's up? What's up?
That ball is belted. Welcome in Carlos Gomez. Hello. Goodbye. Ay, 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 ay.
Prescott down the middle. Butler makes a move.
Oh man, yeah. We rocking now for real. BS3 Sports. Okay, sports news, get it first when you're getting off of work. Even when you're at work, acting like you're working hard when you're hardly working. I'm a maverick like Dirk, getting Franklin's like Kirk. Hold up, boy. X-Squad, you don't know them boys? Being talking facts on every topic. Overall, we just talking noise, just being boys. Covering Texas sports in them tall hills. That with the fake pass over to Elliott. Better guard your grills like a car for real. Yeah, Cowboys gonna bring a bowl back, Lord, will it? Yeah, Mavericks gonna bring a ring back with Mark in it. We live sports, we talk sports, we dream sports, we eat sports. The teacher about to teach the course. Welcome to BS3 Sports.
Weekly show.
Ay. Rouse. Oh man, yeah.
Welcome to the weekend wrap-up show, episode 125. Thank you everybody for tuning in. Entitled Boston Sweeping First, the first team to sweep in this year's NBA playoffs. So we'll be talking about that. We'll be talking about Major League Baseball news. We got the NFL draft coming up. Also, we have Terrence Crawford winning by TKO over Amir Khan. We got some NCAA basketball news. We got Stanley Cup. And we got the Benny Awards at the end of the show where you can nominate and say who was the top performer of the weekend. So we got a great show. We're going to go ahead and get right into it, starting a little bit late, but thank you for all the listeners, background listeners, listen now, joining on the show chat room. Also, X Squad Affiliates is doing a contest, which we're coming up towards the end of that, where if you're a new listener, you can log on, create a profile on Spreaker.com, follow X Squad Affiliates, and then you'll just need to tag X Squad Affiliates in your Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram posts, and you can enter in for a chance to win $100. It's just that easy. So new listeners, we appreciate that, and we want to continue to grow the network. It's not just about having the current listeners. We want to continue to expand and have more, and that's what help this thing continue to grow. Shout out to Said Galloway, Mocha Bella in the building. Thank you guys, as always, for your support and for tuning in. So let's go ahead and get right into it. NBA playoffs going strong. We had a few games on Saturday, some on Sunday. The 76ers bounced back, end up beating the Nets. The big story of this one, Embiid does return. Also, Embiid calls Jared Dudley a nobody, which I thought Joel Embiid is very comical. To me, he's extremely funny. Sometimes he comes off as being obnoxious or by being rude or whatever you want to call it. But you got to admit, Joel Embiid is a funny cat. So he called him a nobody. They end up bouncing back. They had to get this win. They couldn't go through any other situation of them losing more games in these playoffs. And now we're starting to see the real teams come into play, and we're starting to see the teams that had a surprise win and stuff like that. They're going to start to fall off, and that's what happens in the NBA playoffs. Shout out to JB Jennings, also Mo Cheese in the building. Everybody go back and listen to Chief Rocket Show. It was right before mine's. Go back and listen to that. Great content here on X Squad Radio, like we continue to say. But I think we are starting to see how the real teams are really starting to show up. Real teams are showing up. The surprise teams are starting to fade away. And that's what makes the NBA playoffs fun, because you could see a potential upset. You may not see one at all, but at least you're going to get some exciting basketball. Besides the Pacers and the Celtics series, there hasn't been a sweep in any other series as of yet. But probably tonight, you probably will also see another sweep, I believe. That leads into Game 3. Blake Griffin does play, but it didn't matter. Milwaukee still beats them 119-103. Bucks take a commanding 3-0 lead. Pistons have tied the Knicks for the longest postseason losing streak in NBA history at 13. I kind of feel bad for the Pistons, because I'm like, they get there, but they don't have enough firepower to be able to do anything. And I think they'll need another guy to come on this team to help them. I'm definitely a fan of Dwayne Casey. I like Blake Griffin and I like Drummond, but it just doesn't seem like they have enough. It seems like they're missing something, and they just don't have it right now. So we may see a sweep completed in tonight's game. The Bucks and the Pistons play tonight. They'll be playing in Detroit. I don't think that matters any. I think the Bucks will definitely take care of business. We will see the second sweep. Shout out to Chief Rocka. Thank you for tuning in. I mentioned you earlier. Great show. We're listening in while working. Shout out to my pops. Thank you for tuning in as well. Hopefully everybody had a wonderful Resurrection Sunday yesterday. Much love to everyone. Very, very sad news with the news in Sri Lanka. If you guys didn't hear about that, man, prayers up, because there was a lot of lives lost by a heinous attack that did not have to happen. So if you didn't hear about that story, you can go and look that up. Over to the Rockets. The Rockets go up 3-0 on the Jazz, despite James Harden missing his first 15 shots. That, to me, tells me that the team is not just all James Harden, because if it was, and he has a horrible shooting night, then that means that the game would be over. Now, they won by 3, but still, they won. If you look at the stat sheet, PJ Tucker had 12, Capella had 11, CP3 had 18, Gordon had 12, Austin Rivers had 11 off the bench, and James Harden still had 22. He went 3 for 20 in field goals, 2 for 13 from the 3, and he still scored 22 points. Donovan Mitchell at 34. I just think this Jazz team is different this year. This is not the same Jazz team that we seen last year. And I think I talked about it on Friday's show, the Good Friday show. I talked about that I think this team has been recognized now. When you get recognized, things change. When you're the underdog team and you come in and you catch a team by surprise and you end up winning a couple games, that's great. But then if you go into that next year, a lot of times what we see is these teams are more recognized, that they're more, people know who to gravitate to, they know who to double team, they know what their tendencies are, they get a better understanding of what the team's about. And I think that's kind of what happened with the Jazz this year. So it looks like they're probably, I don't want to think that they're going to get swept, but it's almost looking like this is going to end up being a sweep for them. So that goes into tonight's game, which is going to be Rockets Jazz. Houston up 3-0. They'll be playing this game in Utah. I think maybe Utah will get one. I'm going to lean towards Utah in this game. I think they can possibly get one, but it's going to be tough. It's going to be extremely hard. This is not going to be an easy win or easy in any shape, form, or fashion for them to be able to get a win. But Donovan Mitchell still playing great basketball. I just think that what they have is not enough, and they've been able to really concentrate on how to stop them more so this year than what they were last year. So that was another game from Saturday that was still was entertaining to watch. Then you go into the Nuggets and the Spurs, Nuggets winning 117-103. Nikola Jokic with 29 and 13. DeMar DeRozan gets ejected. That series is tied 2-2. That's a series right there. That is a series right there. They're tied 2-2. Nuggets coming in at the 2 seed. Spurs coming in at the 7 seed. But like I was talking about on Friday, it really doesn't mean anything where the Spurs are seated, number one. Number two, the West is so stacked that the Spurs would have been probably a 3rd or 4th seed in the East. Shout out to H Rap. Thank you for tuning in. And you're tuned into the weekend wrap-up show. I'm your host, Ben, a.k.a. BS3. Thank you for everybody tuning in. If it's your first time, thank you. Also, join in on the show chat room. Create a profile with your social media account or your email, and you can join in on the fun. It's very interactive. I will shout you out. So the most interesting series, I think, out of the West right now has to be the Nuggets and the Spurs. With it being tied 2-2, they're going at it. Their seeds don't really mean anything. And it's a coin toss. It's honestly a coin toss. It's almost like you can't really say that the Nuggets are going to win this, and you can't honestly say that the Spurs are going to easily win this, because they play, and they've been playing great basketball on both sides, which that's what makes this series interesting, because it's not just a easy prediction that you can make. So I think that this series has definitely been interesting to watch. So those were your games for Saturday that we had. Let's go into the Sunday games. First one, Warriors-Clippers. Warriors taking care of business. KD and Clay with a combined 65 points. Golden State's a commanding 3-1 lead. I'm not surprised at all. I think the Clippers snuck into the playoffs. They snuck into the playoffs. They really did not have a clear shot of winning. Patrick Beverley definitely gave them an upside in that first game. Then we're kind of like, what's going on here? Clippers win. But this series is now over. They're up 3-1, so there's no way the Clippers are going to be able to come back in this. But for them to get that one game, gave them a little bit of a spark, gave them a little bit of excitement. But at the end of the day, we know that the Clippers cannot beat the Warriors. So Game 5 coming up on Wednesday, and this game is in Oakland, and I just think that they're going to close it out. No surprise or concern there. Toronto, who's one win away from beating the Magic caught them and snuck them in that one game. But from there on, it's been all Toronto. 107-85. Kawhi with 34. Toronto's been taking care of business from here on. So that's not a surprise in that series. Again, Orlando got a sneaky one. But that does not mean that they really, truly had a shot to win this whole series. Kawhi is doing this thing. There's a player on Toronto. I think his last name is Pascal Siakam. I think he's going to be in the running for the most improved player of the year. He's leading the team with 16.9 points. Serge Ibaka out there hitting threes. Kyle Lowry I think Kyle Lowry had a pretty decent game. Let me go check out his stats. Maybe not. He was 9 and 9. 9 points,